Hare Krishna, welcome to Bhagavad Gita class. I've lost count of which one it is, but we will be covering chapter 13. It's either the 31st or 32nd or 33rd, somewhere in that range class. So before we get started, let's recite the Mangalacharan prayers, which are at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And as usual, my request is please find a nice quiet place and devote these 2 hours to Lord Krishna's message. Also, if possible, please turn on your videos. I like to, make it more interactive, at least visually. So that would be one of my requests. Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Okay, so chapter 13, my goal, and as you know, I'm not too good at keeping my goals, but the goal is to start and finish chapter 13 today. It's one of the medium-sized chapters, 35 verses in all. So not a small one, but not too big either. And there's a lot of, this is a very complex chapter. So I don't want to scare you. I'll make it very simple and straightforward. And Lord Krishna has organized it very nicely. But it's one of the more complicated chapters because I'll explain why. And we are starting the last. The Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 parts, and this is the beginning of the 3rd part. So Bhagavad Gita is like first 6 chapters, next 6, and then the last 6. So 13 to 18 is the last 6, and the first 6 are describing with karma yoga. That's the sort of the main essence. And Lord Krishna, though Bhagavad Gita is all about bhakti, but Lord Krishna in the first 6 chapters is describing bhakti through karma, through one's actions and detachment. So detached action. So that becomes nishkama karma. And when you connect that nishkama karma, as in you offer the results to Krishna, or you do the work of Krishna, but it's mainly karma oriented, then it becomes bhakti as well. So bhakti through karma, the middle 6 chapters were all about bhakti, just pure bhakti. And the last 6 chapters are jnana or bhakti through jnana. How jnana leads to bhakti. Higher and higher stages of jnana lead to bhakti. So like we said, from karma, higher and higher stages of karma lead to bhakti. Higher and higher stages of jnana also lead to bhakti. And we will see that very clearly in chapter 13, described very nicely by Lord Krishna. So, however, there'll be some technical terminology and technical aspects in the 13th chapter, and I will try my best to explain it as nicely as possible. I will also say that all this detailed, deep knowledge about jnana is really not required. Just executing simply the process of bhakti is enough. And Krishna, in fact, even says that in verse number 26 of the 13th chapter. Yep, that's right, 26th. It's a very important, one of the important verses of the 13th chapter, where Krishna says no need to do any other process of jnana, etc. Simply doing bhakti is enough. But for those that are inclined towards jnana, the 13th chapter is very interesting. So, and it's best read once we have understood the first 12 chapters. Funny story is that, I used to, this is about 20 years ago, I used to attend Bhagavad Gita classes and start going to temple and, hearing various, so people used to give classes on various chapters and various verses, like random. So I had sort of a general understanding of the messages of Lord Krishna, including, we are not the body, uh, and we are not the doer, and we should offer the results to Krishna and bhakti and many things. And so I thought Bhagavad Gita can be read. You open any chapter and you can read Bhagavad Gita. It's kind of, it will make sense. Now, my wife had read Bhagavad Gita like cover to cover before I did. So I had read bits and pieces, but I hadn't read cover to cover. So I thought one time I will read Bhagavad Gita, like every single chapter fully. And I remember I thought I'll read one chapter fully. So I just randomly opened. I don't know what random logic I applied. I happened to open chapter 13. And I started reading it, and it did not make sense to me at all. And that was the impression I got, that, it's like, when you try to see whether the rice has boiled or not, you take one or two grains and you check whether the rice has boiled. So I took it, I applied that analogy here, and I said, oh my God, this chapter is so complex. The whole of Bhagavad Gita must be complex. And I put it aside. And that uh, offset my reading of Bhagavad Gita by almost a year, I would say. I didn't pick it up for almost 1 year. And then I started with another chapter. When I told my wife afterwards, she said, yeah, 13th chapter is a little more complex. You should not, have try again with a different one. But motivation is so hard to build, especially when there is no taste for it in the beginning. It took me almost a year to restart reading Bhagavad Gita, but then I started from, I think, chapter 1, right from the beginning, and then it was a smooth ride after that. So it's good that we are reading 13th. Lord Krishna has put 13th chapter after the first 12. I mean, of course, 13 comes after 12, but what I mean to say is the content of 13th chapter is coming after Lord Krishna has explained the whole aspect of karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, bhakti. Now we can understand jnana and how jnana leads to bhakti. So that is the essence of this chapter. So there are many other texts, Vedic texts, that start off directly with jnana, especially the Vedanta Sutras. And Lord Krishna will mention those here. But the mistakes that some people make, or actually many people make, that mistake is to start their spiritual practice with the understanding of, or with the attempt to understand, the Vedanta Sutras and the Vedanta, basically. That process is valid, but in other yugas. But in Kali Yuga, and especially for simpler people, and we are all simple. We may be a big engineer, doctor, philosopher, PhD, uh, double, triple PhD, but from spiritual angle, we are all novices. So attempting to understand this jnana directly, without a foundation that has been built so far in Bhagavad Gita, leads people to either feel that they have understood something profound. It's a feel good feeling, oh, I have understood this, these big terms, and they go and repeat it. It becomes like dinner table conversations where they can show off, but or uh, appear to be very knowledgeable, very, very advanced. But in terms of making actual practical progress in their own spiritual life, that is very little, almost negligible. So this whole spiritual reading is not just for some kind of ecstasy, in the terms of like the ecstasy you get while doing a massage, or it's not like you're just some mental gymnastics. It's meant for making progress in our spiritual life. So by reading all the Vedanta from the beginning, if that's the first thing one encounters, it feels very glorious. That's why Lord Krishna talks about it in the second chapter, the flowery language of the Vedas, he calls it. So it's very flowery, it's very grandiose, but it's not actionable. And what is actionable, especially for people in Kali Yuga, is bhakti. So that we have covered. And now Lord Krishna is taking us into the jnana aspect, just to make sure that those who have this understanding of jnana are not left out. That, oh, bhakti is something, separate. What about jnana? There is all this body of knowledge called Vedanta Sutra. Is Bhagavad Gita completely agnostic, completely uh, 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 unaware of Vedanta? It's completely orthogonal, as we would say. That's not the case. Bhagavad Gita is very much aligned with Vedanta, and the purpose of chapter 13 is to show that. And this knowledge will start building up, and it will sort of climax in chapter 15. And in chapter 15, Lord Krishna will show that the ultimate goal of Vedanta and all the Vedas, or the ultimate goal or the conclusion of the Vedanta, is exactly the same as the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. So those who have read Bhagavad Gita have not missed out anything, not even a bit, on the uh, from those who are pursuing the path of Vedanta, in terms of the benefit, in terms of the conclusion or the end goal. It's exactly the same. The only difference is that the Bhagavad Gita is emphasizing process of bhakti, which is far more easier and quicker, sulabha and quicker, kshipram or nachirat. I'm using the words from the Bhagavad Gita itself. Sulabham is 8.14. Nachirat um is 12.6 and or 7, and kshipram is 9.31. So all these, the process of bhakti is quick and easy, whereas the process of Vedanta is very hard, especially for people in Kali Yuga. However, to show that this is all the same body of knowledge, it's leading towards the same goal, is the goal of this overall section from 13 to 18. And we start that journey in 13. So all those Vedantists, and today we have a question somebody posted. We'll talk about that. So it's kind of well timed. So all the Vedantists, all those who are interested in the study of the Vedanta, will find enjoyment in this chapter. But the end message is that the process of bhakti is the topmost. And Krishna will say that in chapter 13 itself. He will say that. So in the interest of time, since I want to cover the whole chapter in one class today, again, in the interest of making faster progress now, because jnana is not the main focus of Bhagavad Gita, bhakti is. So this is Jnana Yoga chapter mainly. We'll make quicker progress. Otherwise, this will become a 1-year class, not a 6-month class. We are way past 6 months, but anyway, definitely don't want to make it for 1 year. So text number 1 and 2. So we'll start chapter 13, nature, enjoyer, the enjoyer and consciousness. So I'll do most of the reading and then I'll ask you to do some reading as well. Text 1 and 2. Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna." Oh, so let me share my slides, and then I have some very simple slides just so that you can see what I am speaking. You can see, right? So 6 topics are being dealt in the chapter 13. So Arjuna is going to ask about these 6 topics. Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, which is Kshetra, and the knower of the field, which is Kshetragya." As you can, those of you who understand little Sanskrit, Kshetra is field, and the knower of the field will be, you add a Gya. Gya starts for Jnana, but the knower, or the one who has the knowledge of something, you add a Gya. So Kshetragya. And of knowledge, and so knowledge itself, which is Jnana, and the object of knowledge, Gyeya, the one that needs to be known. What is the knowable or the object of knowledge? Gyeya. So these are the 6 things that Arjuna asks. What are these? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field." So in second verse itself, Lord Krishna is answering. In brief, he will elaborate in verses later, 6 and 7, he will elaborate, but he's saying this body is the field. This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field, or Kshetragya. So Lord Krishna has answered these 2 questions. Okay, third and fourth questions have been answered. The field is the body, and the knower of the field, one who knows the body, is the knower of the field. Now, when we say the body is composed not just of the bones and blood and muscles. That's just the gross body. Lord Krishna will describe really what is the overall meaning of the field. So we will see that a little bit later. And then in verse 3, so who is the knower of the field? Who knows the body? That is the question. So there are 2 knowers of the body or the field. One is the soul. So which means the soul is separate from the body, and the soul knows that this is my body, but I am not the body. The soul is not the body. So the knower, the one who really knows how to distinguish between soul, Atma, and body or Kshetra. And there is another knower, not just the soul, and the soul here means the individual soul or the Jiva, but Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, also knows that this is your body and this is you as the Jiva. So the Lord also is the knower. So there are 2 Kshetragyas. The enlightened Jiva. Now we may be all illusioned that I am the body. We may collapse the understanding of me and my body as the same. But a enlightened person, Jiva, is the Kshetragya, and similarly, the Lord is also the Kshetragya. Now, this does not mean Jiva is equal to Lord. Okay, I know algebra, and the professor of mathematics also knows algebra. It doesn't mean that I am equal to the professor of mathematics. Professor of mathematics may know, very, very much deeper topics which I don't know. So just because we both know that 2 plus 2 equal to 4 doesn't mean that I am equal to the professor. Professor knows calculus and, so many other topics. So don't think that because both Lord and Jiva have the capacity to know the kshetra or the body, and that the body is different from the soul, does not make us equal to Paramatma. Just keep that in mind. So text number 3. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. So that is the point I was explaining earlier, that Lord Krishna is saying, I am also the knower. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. So to understand it is called knowledge. Okay, so to understand that we are different from I am different from my body. And this whole science of body and soul, one who understands, that is the knower, and this is called knowledge. This understanding is called knowledge. Now we will see another meaning of knowledge little bit later in verses 8 to 12. This knowledge is of course the understanding. Okay, I understood the knowledge. Fine. How did you understand that knowledge? The process of understanding is also called knowledge. How did you get to attain that knowledge is also knowledge. Because without knowing how to get knowledge, the knowledge is not very accessible. So one should know not only what is knowledge, but how to access it. You want the treasure, you also need to have the key to the treasure chest. So both those are important. Okay. So text number 4. Now Lord Krishna, so okay, let me go to the next slide here. This I will leave it on for some time. And this is basically a breakdown, very detailed level breakdown of the whole chapter. Because this is such a complex chapter, I have given a very detailed breakdown, again taken from the works of a lot of other wonderful devotees. So this is not a result of my own work, but I have taken from other places that have broken down. One of the very nice places where it has been shown broken down is by a book by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada called Bhurijan Prabhu. And he has written this book called Surrender Unto Me, which is his, thoughts and some of his notes on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And at the end of that book, he has given breakdowns of each of the chapters in sections. It's very helpful. I have found it to be very helpful. And of course, there are materials by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu that I rely on heavily. So, in text number 4 and 5, Krishna is going to give a disclaimer. The disclaimer he's going to give is that this knowledge, which I'm going to give you, what you have asked, the topics of the six topics you have asked, I can only give you in summary. The detailed knowledge is available in Vedanta Sutra or in Brahma Sutras. So he is giving a pointer. If anybody wants more knowledge about it, you're welcome to look into the Brahma Sutras, which are just another name for Vedanta Sutras. So this knowledge, Lord Krishna is pointing that it is coming directly from Vedanta Sutra. So the chapter 13 contents are no different from the contents of Vedanta Sutra or the Vedantas. So you can say 13th chapter is a summary of the Vedanta. So, text number 4. Now please hear my brief description. Samashena, Lord Krishna says. Samasena means in brief. Samasena me shrinu. So now hear from me in brief, my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, and who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. So Lord Krishna is saying everything that you have asked, I'm going to explain, but in brief. And he says, if you want details, where to go? That is verse number 5. So verse number 5 says, that knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So here, the Vedanta Sutra and the Brahma Sutras are one and the same, and Lord Krishna is saying that Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva. So in the Brahma Sutras, by the various pada, they are known as padas. Pada number 1, pada number 2, like verses we have shlokas, they have aphorisms, that they are called aphorisms. They are known as padas. They are sort of encoded, very, very compact encodings of knowledge. And those are present in the Vedantas. So Lord Krishna is saying that you can get more knowledge from there. Now, in the purport, again, for since this is a brief class or an introduction, but in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has described one. Let me show it quickly so that you can read it at your own pace. 13.5. Oh, why did I go to chapter 6? 13.5. Here, in this paragraph, Srila Prabhupada has given a very detailed description of the 5 types of realizations of the Supreme. Annamaya is the first one, which is like a materialistic conception that as long as whoever gives me food is God, and God gives food. So Annamaya, just, worshipping whoever provides me my daily bread. Annamaya, then Pranamaya, then Jnanamaya, then Vijnanamaya, and finally Anandamaya. So these are the various levels of understanding the supreme truth. And Srila Prabhupada says later on that out of these, the first 3, where is that? Out of these, right here. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the field of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. So the point here is that, and then Srila Prabhupada goes on to say the Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Bhyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. So please pay attention. We will talk about this line in the Q&A. But the point is that the Vedanta Sutras do talk about Anandamaya. Anandamaya as the Supreme Lord being interested in enjoying. He has the desire to enjoy. He has the desire to enjoy with whom? With his devotees. So therefore, there is this spirit of enjoyment, and therefore he has so many qualities. He has so many spiritual feelings of enjoyment, and he is not nirguna in that sense. How can a nirguna have the spirit of enjoyment? A nirguna cannot be anandamaya. So somebody asked that question about saguna and nirguna. I will, the Vedanta Sutras itself talk about Anandamaya. But when some of the teachers, even very prominent teachers of Vedanta, start teaching about Vedanta, they don't reach this level of Anandamaya. They remain at the level of Jnanamaya and Vijnanamaya. And to reach to the level of Anandamaya is nothing but bhakti. So Vedanta Sutras the Vedanta has bhakti, but it is sort of hidden behind all these layers of other types of understanding. And that's why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has put bhakti first and then jnana, so that we don't get, the bhakti doesn't get sort of buried under the load of jnana, because this topic of jnana is very difficult to understand. Okay, so continuing our reading. Now, Lord Krishna is going to describe field in great detail in the next 2 verses, field and interactions within the field. So I have created sort of a slide just to uh, make it easy to show what is being described in this two verses in a visual format. You can take a screenshot, and this will also be in the video that will be posted on YouTube. So this will be available to you. However, I'll make it quick. I don't want to go into every detail here. I'll explain first and then we'll read the verse. That will make it better. So, what Lord Krishna is basically saying, and this whole slide that I have made is based on these two verses, 6 and 7, and Srila Prabhupada's purport to this whole two verses. So, everything that you see here is coming directly from, is a visual representation of the words given by Lord Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. So, basically, what you see here is the field. Everything that you see here is the field in, let me say, in this portion. And then and as you can see, this is the body. Basically everything that is highlighted here or kind of in that box is the field or the body. And then there are interactions between the senses and the objects of the senses, and that is not considered part of the field, but that is also mentioned here. So this is what goes on between the body and the objects or the senses of the that the body interacts with. So the field, so the body out of this is this portion. This is the body. There are the 5 elements: earth, water, air, bhumir, apa, anala, vayu, kha. So earth, air, water, what is it? Earth, air, water, fire, and ether. Those are the 5 elements. Then the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the 5 senses in our body through which we acquire knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, touch. Okay. So those are our 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and 5 working senses through which we basically this is how we receive from the external world, this is our receptors, and these are the producers, what we produce towards the external world. So the 5 working senses are I have listed it down here: the hands, legs, voice, which is tongue, and the 2 excretory organs. So these are our 5 working senses. Okay. And then there is the mind, intelligence, and false ego, which we have also read in the 7th chapter: man, buddhi, and ahankar. And then there is the influence on the man, buddhi, and ahankar through the material modes of nature. The pradhana is the ultimate source of the modes of material nature. So the pradhana is the basic if I kind of say just a very basic scientific term, the fundamental fundamental particle, or the fundamental building block of material nature is called as pradhana. The unmanifested modes of material nature is how Srila Prabhupada has translated it into English. For some of these words, it's hard to find an English translation. So, we can debate for hours and hours what it means by unmanifested modes of material nature, but what it means is pradhana. And if we want details, we can go into the Vedanta and other places. So that whole thing, all this is the body. Now, the field does not consist of the soul. I have shown the soul here because the soul is also within the body. So you may ask that this is not a dead body. It definitely has a soul, but soul is not considered to be the field. However, the symptoms of the soul, there are 2 symptoms: conviction and consciousness. So when the soul leaves the body, there is no consciousness left. And there is another symptom of the soul, which is conviction. So that is why Paramatma or God can be very easily realized through conviction. So when we practice bhakti, or for that matter, any process, spiritual process, whether it is jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, but bhakti yoga is the easiest and best, we get direct perception, we get direct experience of God. Some experience comes, and that will be different for everyone. Somehow or the other, God reciprocates when you make sincere and serious progress. And uh, that capacity or that faculty by which we experience God is called conviction. We get such a strong signal that our conviction antenna, is able to catch that signal, and we get convinced, yes, God exists. Otherwise, for those who have not yet received that conviction, there is no way anybody can make them believe that God exists. No way. So you can try for years and years and years. One who does not have that conviction, ultimately, spirituality can only be uh, believed through conviction. And this is similar to the aspect of faith. So when you see some conviction, then faith becomes stronger. So faith is a output of the, or is a result of the conviction. And conviction is the result of practice of the spiritual process. So, and that conviction comes directly to the soul. It's not logical, it's not a mental intelligence thing. Otherwise, somebody could write, if it's a mind thing, somebody could write a mental, paper on it, a textbook on it. And after reading the textbook, you should be able to be convinced that God exists. But no textbook can convince anybody about God. Not even Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, Bhagavad Gita does exist as a book. Why isn't everybody convinced in Bhagavad Gita? So many people say, oh, Bhagavad Gita is just some random book and, not for me. So uh, that is called conviction. Then there is the 5 objects of the senses. So these are the ones that attract the body. So ultimately, if you think, we do whatever action that we do, it is for these 5 senses. Some kind of pleasure we obtain through these 5 media: sense of smell, taste, form, touch, or sound. All our enjoyment and all our pain is through these media. Okay, so this is our interface to the world. When somebody says nice things to us, we hear it through sound and we feel happy. So sound is there, taste, smell, we see nice things, and that's how so that's the medium of our happiness as well as distress, and touch as well. And then there are interactions of the body with these senses, and those interactions lead to these are the 4 primary forms of interactions: happiness and distress, which is enjoyment and you know um, suffering. Happiness, distress, enjoy, suffer, same synonyms, they're same things. And desire and hatred, what I want, what I don't want. So there's desire and hatred. I want this, I hate this, I don't want it. When we get what we want, we enjoy. When we don't get what we want, we are in distress. Or when we get what we don't want, again distress. Right? So you understand. So these are our interactions between the body and the agents, or the medium of our enjoyment and suffering, which are the 5 objects. So that is what is being said in 13.6 and 13.7. And this whole thing is the description of the field, kshetra. So that question is being answered here. The 5 great elements: false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects: desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions. Uh, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Okay, so that question of what is the field is described here. Okay, we'll go back. Am I still sharing? Yeah, looks like. Okay, so we'll go back to our previous slide here. Now we will go to knowledge. What is knowledge? And Krishna will, in 5 verses 8 to 12, Krishna is describing knowledge. Now our acharyas have described that this is not just knowledge, this is actionable knowledge. Knowledge basically is as we will see later in the last few verses 28 to 31, that the knowledge of this whole of Paramatma is the ultimate knowledge. But this is, if you read it in the context, you will see that this is also the process for acquiring knowledge, how to obtain knowledge. And when you follow that process, at the end of that process, you will get knowledge. So just follow the process. So it's like you're asking, where is the treasure? I am telling you, go down this way, go down this path. Or wait, no, that's not the right way to put it. I say, give me treasure. I am telling you, go down this path. So my answer is not treasure, right? I asked you, give me treasure. All you gave me is the direction toward the treasure. But you will agree that just by telling you, go down this path and you will find the treasure, is as good as giving you treasure. Correct? So following the path that leads to the outcome is as good as the outcome. All you have to do is follow the path, follow the directions, and you will get it. So here Krishna is describing knowledge or the process of obtaining knowledge, and this is the process. So we will see humility, first quality. So develop humility and you will gain knowledge. Pridelessness, non-violence, ahimsa, tolerance. Yesterday in Bhagavatam class, we discussed about tolerance very in great detail. What is the level of tolerance that one can develop? Simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Acharya upasanam. So approaching and doing upasana of a acharya, very important. So the spiritual knowledge cannot be obtained from just a textbook. One has to take the shelter of a spiritual master. That's when one gets connected to the acharya. So acharyopasanam. Cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. So perception that these things are real, that disease, old age, I am the body, I will die, all those things are illusion. So the perception, treating those things as illusion. So the perception of all these things. Detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. I want to explain this. So it doesn't mean that you have to leave the wife or the children. And again, doesn't just mean wife. It doesn't mean just it is for men. Wife is given here. It means family bindings. For a woman, it means leaving the man, or the man, it means leaving the woman. It does not mean that you must divorce or you must leave the house. No, it does not mean that. It means that remaining entangled with attachment at the bodily level. Husband, wife, children can happily live in the same house as long as they are all nicely practicing Krishna consciousness. There is no problem in that. What you have left, even though you are living in the same house, what you have left is that bodily attraction for each other, that I only love the body of my husband or the body of my wife. You stop seeing them as a bodily source of satisfaction. Oh, my wife says nice things to me, or not looking at it like that, but looking at the husband or the wife as a partner in my devotional journey. And as part of that, there is love. There is, of course, a lot of friendship. There is going together. And of course, if you are a young husband and wife, it also means producing Krishna conscious children. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, as we have read in 7th chapter, 7.10 or 11. So here Srila Prabhupada has given a very long purport, and it will be hard for me to kind of go through all the points. This whole purport is almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. But we will see here for detachment, it writes, or the purport says, and Srila Prabhupada writes, as for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection. But when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. Okay, so our goal should be to make ourselves Krishna conscious and also our family Krishna conscious. So one should not mistake that Bhagavad Gita is telling us to take sannyas or take divorce. Even-mindedness, I'm continuing the translation now. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. And then here comes bhakti. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me. The Sanskrit is Mai cha ananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. So Mai cha ananya yogena. So ananya, again this word ananya, very important, means single focused. Ananya, unalloyed or not mixed, or exclusively to Krishna, unalloyed devotion. Bhaktir avyabhicharini. Avyabhicharini means unbroken. Another two words we have used often in Bhagavad Gita so far, nityam and satatam. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Ye jana paryupasate. And nityam, kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha, 10.9. And satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dradhavrataha, 9.14. So you can see these words satatam, nityam, which means always, unbroken. Avyabhicharini is referring to the same one. So basically, the unalloyed pure bhakti is given by Lord Krishna and is also given in the Vedanta. But as you can see, it is kind of buried within a whole lot of other processes. Aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people. Again, detachment from general mass of people means from materialistic people. So we are sitting here in Bhagavad Gita class for 2 hours on Sunday, but all the other time, if we are going and associating with purely materialistic people who are all the time talking about the best restaurants in town, best whatever movies going on, all the things that the politicians did, or this man ran away with this person's wife and this lady ran away with this guy, and all this prajalpa, and what is the other word, um, all this nonsense topics, then the mind keeps getting uh, poisoned, and this 2 hours of cleaning is not enough. So detachment means detachment from materialistic people, but the flip side is attachment to devotees. Spend as much time as possible, but with devotional minded people, so that your mind will not get poisoned, will not get corrupted with all kind of nonsense. Accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search of the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So this is knowledge. This is the path of knowledge as well. So Lord Krishna has answered so many questions. If you see here among the questions, Lord Krishna has answered um, enjoyer. Who is the enjoyer has been answered, right? It's the Jiva and the Paramatma. Both are the, sorry, not the enjoyer, the knower, Kshetragya. The Jiva and the self-realized or the enlightened Jiva and the Paramatma. The field has been described nicely. We described that whole slide, this is the field, that part. And then knowledge, jnana, has been described. So these three have been answered. These three questions has been answered. Now, Lord Krishna is going to answer the fifth question, which is jnana. No, sorry, jnana has been answered. Gyeya, the object of knowledge. That will be answered now in the next 6 verses, 13 to 18, 13 to 19, perhaps 6 or 7 verses. This will be answered. What or who is the object of knowledge? So some very important points coming up here. Let me see. Okay, I will read. Now I shall now, so I'm reading 13, text number 13. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So, Lord Krishna is saying that now I will explain the knowable or the gyayam. That's the first line of the translation, what Lord Krishna is saying. I'm going to explain this. And what is the gyayam? Gyayam is Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So in one word, Lord Krishna is saying that at a very summary level, it is the Brahman. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is giving that Brahman has several meanings. So Brahman is not meanings, but the same Brahman has different levels of understanding. So there is the Vijnana Brahman, Ananda Brahman, and also there is the Jiva Brahman. I read it probably elsewhere. But if you look at the glossary, if you have the paper book Bhagavad Gita, I don't think this is there in the Veda base. They have not put the glossary, I think. Have they? Yeah, I don't see the glossary here in Veda base. So you'll have to go to the paper version of the Bhagavad Gita. And there you will see glossary. And if you open the glossary and look for Brahman. So Brahman, Srila Prabhupada has given 4 different understandings of the word Brahman. The individual soul. This is the Vijnana Brahman, not Jiva Brahman. So this is the Vijnana Brahman. And the impersonal, all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme, this is the Ananda Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, that is Parabrahman. And the Mahat Tattva, or the total material substance. So these are the 4 levels of understanding of Brahman. So Lord Krishna is saying that is the knowable. And one should be very careful to understand what are the various levels. Now, one very important thing Lord Krishna is saying. Now, Lord Krishna is saying that Mat Param Brahma. Anadim Mat Param Brahma. So this word, this part of this verse, 13.13c, Anadim Mat Param Brahma, is very important. Mat Param. Mat Param means, so this is again, this discussion is all for all those people who are asking the question, who is superior, Brahman or Krishna, which means Bhagavan. The personal form of Krishna is superior or the Brahman is superior? And this was one of the questions that came up, and I want to answer that with reference to this verse, but we'll deal with it later as well. If you see Mat Para in the Bhagavad Gita itself has been used at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I counted randomly from my readings of Bhagavad Gita. There are so many occurrences of Mat Param or Mat Paraha means, and mostly in all the cases the meaning is the devotee, Mat Para devotee, Bhakta, comes under my shelter, takes my protection, or comes under my protection. He comes to take my shelter. What does that mean? Mat Para devotee surrenders to Krishna, or is taking shelter, or is taking protection. So who is superior? Devotee is superior or Krishna is superior in this case? Any answers? The one who is seeking protection or one who is providing protection? So who is superior? One who is providing protection is superior, and one who is seeking protection is inferior. And here Lord Krishna is saying that Brahman is Matpara. Matpara means that the Brahman is subordinate. Now Brahman is not seeking protection, but the context is subordinate. That's why you will see the translation given by Srila Prabhupada. Mat Param is subordinate to me. Mat means me. There is very clear, Mat means me. Lord Krishna is speaking this verse. So he is absolutely clearly saying Brahman is subordinate to me. How can we argue that Krishna is subordinate to Brahman? How can we argue that? Okay, we can argue it, but then you have to say that I disagree with Bhagavad Gita. We have to put Bhagavad Gita on the shelf. So this class, we are assuming Bhagavad Gita to be the basic axiom, the basic foundation on which we have the discussion. Otherwise, we can keep discussing without any foundation to agree upon. We can keep saying our own language. Then there's no point in having a discussion. As long as we agree that Bhagavad Gita, we will have the discussion based on Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna is saying Anadim Mat Param Brahma. So if you want references to other places, I don't have time. It's already 5 o'clock. So what do you think? I mean, should we go into this topic in detail? My wife is kind of feels we should treat in more detail sometimes when I tend to go faster. So I'm seeking feedback. So, okay. So yeah, she's saying I don't know, but if you want, these are the verses where Mat Parah or Mat Param is coming, and all are in relation to devotees who are taking shelter of Krishna. 2.61, 6.13 and 14, 12.6 and 7. If you remember, 12.6 and 7 are pure Bhakti Yoga verses where Lord Krishna is comparing Bhakti with the impersonal process. 18.57 and then 11.55, one of the topmost Bhakti verses where Lord Krishna says, I cannot be attained by charity, by tapasya, by the study of Vedas. Only by exclusive Bhakti I can be attained. So Mat Paraham is coming there, that the devotees take my full shelter and then they come to me. And then here, the same word Mat Param. So I'm just using the aspect of language. If at all other places it means taking shelter or taking protection, it should mean the same thing over here. You cannot say that, no, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna had a completely different meaning of Mat Param or Mat Paraha in this verse compared to all those other 6-7 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So Brahman is any understanding of Brahman, even the Paramatma. Parabrahman refers to Paramatma. So Paramatma is also a subordinate understanding of that absolute supreme truth, And the most complete, the absolute complete understanding of that absolute truth is Bhagavan, or the personal form of the absolute truth, which is none other than Krishna. So Paramatma is also subordinate to Krishna. Paramatma is the localized form or the localized expansion of Krishna, but Krishna is the source of all levels of understanding of Brahman. Okay. So in this chapter, so the large part of the Vedanta is about describing how Paramatma is the um, knowable, is the Gyeya. And then very short places, now I am no expert in Vedanta. I am repeating what I have read from Srila Prabhupada's writings, and he's an expert in Vedanta. He's an expert in all spiritual topics. So as I have understood from the writings of Srila Prabhupada and other senior acharyas and devotees, that a large part of the Vedanta is describing the Paramatma aspect. The Bhagavan aspect is there, but it is there very deep, embedded, and buried inside all the other understanding. So here, the rest of the Gyeya, or the knowable, is referring to Paramatma. But Lord Krishna has already said that this is all subordinate to me. So, verse number 14. With that understanding, we will move forward. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. So, the super soul, or the Paramatma, pervades everything. Super soul is present in all the living and non-living entities. Super soul, we have discussed this in chapter 2 itself, is present in the heart of every living entity. In the heart of every living entity, there are two souls, the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So that is what the Paramatma is referred to here. He is everywhere. That's why it is written. He has his hands, legs, eyes, heads, faces, ears, which means Paramatma is seeing and hearing everything. He's present everywhere. Not only he's seeing and hearing, he's guiding us also through his face, through his mouth. So he's not just a receiver, like a receiver, like a GPS receiver. It is also outputting advice, guidance. We have to receive it. Paramatma is interacting with us everywhere, and he is also present in every atom of the non-living matter. So that is also mentioned here. Pervades everywhere. And if you are more interested, you can read Brahma Samhita. I will just want to show you here. Brahma Samhita is another very deep philosophical text. It is in Veda base. Brahma Samhita, right here at the end. Brahma Samhita, text number 35. These are Lord Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna. Brahma Samhita are the offerings of Lord Brahma in terms of prayers to Lord Krishna. And he says, he is the undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. Now comes the Paramatma aspect. All the universes exist in him, and he is present. Look at this. He is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe. So Krishna as Paramatma is present in every single atom scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. So it's not like he's jumping from atom to atom. At one and the same time, he is present everywhere. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Namami. Tamaham Bhajami. So that is just wanted to show you that. So Paramatma is being referred to in verse number 14. So this is all the topic is the knowable. 15. The super soul is the original source of all senses. And by the word Paramatma will come. The Paramatma word has not come so far, but it's not because Lord Krishna is referring to something else and we are translating, or Srila Prabhupada is translating as Paramatma. No, Paramatma word will come. He doesn't need to mention it in every single verse. The super soul is the original source of all senses, and yet, did we read this? No. And yet, he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. So he transcends. So this is Paramatma. He transcends the modes of nature. And pay attention here, Nirguna, Guna Bhoktra Cha. So he is Nirguna. Nirguna means he transcends the modes of material nature. So which means, and the word guna, we will have a discussion about this later. The question was about gunas or saguna and nirguna. The Paramatma is being called Nirguna. That is true. But the meaning of Nirguna means not without gunas, without any gunas. What is the meaning of guna? Guna means material gunas, does not mean spiritual gunas. If there are not even spiritual gunas, how can there be Ananda? Okay. So these are devoid of material gunas. Nirgunam. That is Paramatma. Number 16. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far away, he is also near to all. So this verse is showing or describing the Achintya Bhed Abheda aspect of the Lord. We had read this in detail in the 9th chapter, verse numbers 9.4 to 9.6. If you want a detailed discussion on Achintya Bhed Abheda, the simultaneous oneness and difference, which means the Lord is present everywhere. Also, the Lord is not present. He is present only in his abode, in Goloka, in the spiritual world. How is it possible? Either he is present everywhere or he is not present everywhere. But the Lord is present everywhere, as well as he is present only in his spiritual abode. The understanding that is there is that as Paramatma, he is present everywhere, but as Bhagavan, he is present in his spiritual abode. And sometimes he comes into various material universes. Okay, so this is the Achintya Bhed Abheda aspect. So, and this makes the Achintya is unknowable or inconceivable. The word that is used here is avigyayam, unknowable. So that is this aspect of being present everywhere and at the same time not being present everywhere is called agyayam. Avigyayam, or unknowable or inconceivable, achintya. So don't try to understand it. What did I say? What did Prabhuji say in the last 5 minutes? I didn't understand. Well, it is meant to not be understood because it is achintya, avigyayam, cannot be understood. So this is the complexity. This is the deep complexity. This is the deep mystery of Krishna. And in 9th chapter, Lord Krishna, what does he say after he says all this? Sort of, I'm present everywhere, I'm not present everywhere, I'm inside, I'm outside, I'm far away, I'm near. How can you be far away and near? What is the verse he says, or what is the word he says? Pashya me yogameshwaram. Just see my my infinite opulences. Celebrate it. Celebrate the fact that I cannot understand Krishna. Krishna is so great that he cannot fit in my mind. I cannot understand all that. So that is the aspect to be celebrated. My Lord is so great. Okay. If we can figure out God, then maybe he's not God. So the Lord is Achintya. So that is being described here. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. This is another question. So is the Paramatma divided because he is in your heart, my heart, every entity's heart, bird's heart, tiger's heart and cat's heart and dog's heart, which means has the Paramatma been divided? Well, yes, Paramatma has been sort of divided, but at the same time, he's not divided. He is the same localized expansion of the Supreme. Now, I cannot explain more either. It is achintya, it is the inconceivable aspect. So don't ask me to explain this more. Is he divided or is he not? Tell me one thing. Don't tell me both. I will say, I'm sorry, I have to tell both. And if you are getting confused, good. I am also confused. That's my answer. So that is the inconceivable aspect of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, I think, who has in turn taken this from other uh, scriptures and other sources, is describing like the sun is there. And if you put many buckets of water on the ground, you will see the sun as a full reflection in each bucket, right? So that is like Paramatma. The sun is the same, but has its reflection in every single bucket of water. It doesn't mean the sun has been divided. But again, that's just a way to explain. It still leaves, at least for me, it still leaves me unsatisfied. But I am satisfied with my unsatisfaction. I don't have any problem with it. So it's good if you are if you are unsatisfied, as long as it doesn't become a hurdle in your bhakti. Enjoy this unsatisfaction and continue with bhakti. Let this not become a hurdle in your bhakti. That is the problem. And if you have such a problem, then we should talk. If you want to celebrate the inconceivability, we can together celebrate the inconceivability. No problem. All right. Are you all following? Okay. Now 18. Right? Did we do 17? Yeah. Appears to be divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, we will cover this aspect of maintainer in a later verse, number 23. He is the maintainer or the permitter. So he is the Bhuta Bhartir. Bhuta Bhartir means maintainer. He is the supporter of all living entities. It is to be understood that he devours and develops all. 18. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. 18d. What it says? Hridi sarvasya vitishtham. So, Hidi vishthitam. So, Tishtati or Vitishtati means to sit down. In 18.61, also Krishna uses the same thing. What is that? Yantra Rurhani Mayaya. What is that? Hridesheshu cha Tishtati Yantra Rurhani Mayaya. What is that? Ishwara Sarva Bhutanam Hridesheshu Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. So that Ishwara as Paramatma is sitting in everyone's heart, and all the living entities inside their body, which is moving around in the universe like a machine. So the body is like a machine, and Ishwara is sitting in everyone's heart. So that same Paramatma, same thing is written here. Hridi sarvasya vishthitam. That Paramatma is in everyone's heart, sitting in everyone's heart. Hridi means heart. Sarvasya means all. Vishthitam means sitting down. Number 19. Now comes, so all this was the Gyayam or the object of knowledge. This whole discussion that we had was, who is the object of knowledge? That Paramatma is the object of our knowledge. And number 19, thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only, now this is very, very important, only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So this verse is revealing the purpose of this whole description. The purpose of this whole description is what? Become my devotee, become my bhakta. If one who is not a bhakta, he will read these 18 verses and he will say, I'm confused. What is it being said here? Then to them, the message in number 19 is, if you want to understand it, what you should do? Become my bhakta. Then you will understand. That is what is written here. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly. Mad bhakta. So the Sanskrit, you see, if you see, is very easy. Mad bhakta etad uh, um, mad bhakta etad vijnaya mad bhave upadyate. Yeah, I haven't recited this verse in a long time. So only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. So if you want to understand this knowledge, become my devotee. That is the message. So this is why we said this is bhakti through jnana. That is what this chapter is trying to explain. This is not just plain dry knowledge. It is knowledge that leads to bhakti and bhakti that leads to knowledge. Now we will go to, oh, I'm displaying the wrong slide. So we have covered from 13 to 19, we have covered knowable. Who is the knowable? The super soul is the knowable. So now we have covered kshetram, kshetragyam. So once again, kshetram is the body, the field. We discussed that whole diagram. Knower of the field, there are two. I'm revising. Knower of the field, two knowers of the field. The jiva, enlightened jiva, and Paramatma. Knowledge, jnanam, or the process of obtaining knowledge. We discussed that. And the object of knowledge, which is Paramatma. So all these four topics have been discussed. Now Krishna will discuss these last two remaining topics, which is Prakriti and Purusham. So that is coming up in text number 20, Prakriti and Purusha. That is 20 to 24. Prakriti is material nature and Purusha means enjoyer. So Prakriti and Purusha. The 20th verse starts with those two words, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. So material nature or Prakriti and the living entities, Purusha, should be understood to be beginningless. They are eternal. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So they are both existing within material nature. 21. So 21 and 22 are describing, so there is Prakriti and there is Purusha, or the living entity, the enjoyer. Now there will be described another enjoyer. So the enjoyers are also two, just like knowers are two, kshetragyas are two, the living entity and the supreme knowledgeable entity, which is Paramatma. The Purusha are also two. That second Purusha will come later. Right now, Purusha means Jiva. And now it is being described as the interaction between Jiva and Purusha. Sorry, Prakriti and Jiva, or Prakriti and Purusha, the interaction between these two. And in the next two verses, 21 and 22, Krishna is describing how the Jiva suffers or enjoys by interacting with material nature. So that has also been covered in the past. How material nature just gives us options. If we choose those options, if we make the wrong choices, we suffer. And if we make the right choices, we enjoy. So right choices and wrong choices, we have had long types of discussion like this in the past discussions of Bhagavad Gita. What it means, right and wrong, choices that are short-term based. Short-term based choices means, oh, let me enjoy today. Let me opt for my sense gratification today. And then you start developing a taste for sense gratification. You always then want sense gratification. And then you start going down the spiral. You even commit sinful activities to fulfill your desire for sense gratification. So these are the choices that one is making. So by making such choices that nature offers, now nature offers both good choices and bad choices. We get so used over a long time of conditioning to make choices that are based for our sense gratification that we even forget that the good choices exist. They absolutely exist. But we don't even see them. We are not even present to them. We don't even realize that they are there. So these two verses are describing how by choices made by Jiva, choices that are offered by Prakriti, one suffers or enjoys. So nature, 21, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So nature is just offering the options, which are the causes and effects. If you choose this, this will happen. If you choose this, this will happen. If you choose this, this will happen. Causes and effects. If you choose to be a good person, nice person, this thing will happen to you. If you choose all those things which were there in 8 to 12 verses, humility, steadfastness, bhakti, all those nice things, then you will make spiritual progress. That is cause and effect. Material world also offers other choices like cheating and all the other things, anger or all the other sinful options. When you choose based on that, you get suffering or happiness. So suffering and happiness is our choice. So whereas the living entity is the cause, so because it is living entity's choice, living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments. So we cannot blame nature. Oh, the world made me a bad person. No, no, no. We made ourselves sinful because we made sinful choices. The Prakriti offered both kinds of choices. And we have had a long discussion on why Prakriti offers both choices, because Krishna wants us out of our free will to choose Krishna. So Prakriti offers both. Prakriti is definitely offering Krishna. There are so many temples, there are so many opportunities to read Bhagavad Gita, there are so many opportunities to perform bhakti, and all those opportunities are being made available in material nature. So we cannot say material nature is not offering us these choices. If we choose them, like you all are choosing right now to attend Bhagavad Gita, discuss and hear Bhagavad Gita, that's a great choice. Because of these kind of choices, we are ensuring our future enjoyment, spiritual enjoyment. 22. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. It is due to his association with that material nature. So the more and more he's associating, the more conditioning happens, and the more he kind of goes down that direction. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So he becomes so conditioned, the conditioning becomes more and more and more. And then to fulfill that conditioning, he takes various species. One who is interested in sleeping, this is one of the slides or one of the plates in Bhagavad Gita, which has been put in almost all the Bhagavad Gitas, that one who is interested in sleeping becomes a bear. Where is that? Yeah, right here, if you see, this one who is interested in eating a lot of meat or and all that becomes a tiger. All that he will get to eat is meat in the body of tiger. If one is interested in eating more horrible kind of things, very bad kind of things, and there are some people who eat almost all kinds of bad things, then you can become a pig. Pig can eat all kind of nonsense. And if you are interested in too much exposure, exposing your body to for various whatever reasons, next body you can become a tree is permanently exposed. So like that, one takes on various species because of strong conditioning in one or the other areas. Now 23. So far we have been discussing the material nature, how it offers the choices. I'm pointing to my slide now. And the enjoyer, which is the jiva. There, and how the interaction between enjoyer or jiva or purusha and prakriti happens. Okay. Now in 23, Lord Krishna is saying there is another enjoyer, purusha, which is the param purusha called Paramatma. So here is the word Paramatma that will appear first time. So this is Paramatma. Yet in this body there is another transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, and who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Paramatmeti chapyukto dehe asmin purushah parah. So upadrishta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwarah. So he is the Paramatma. Paramatmeti chapyukto. So the name of that person is called Param Atma, the super soul. Param Atma, the literal translation Prabhupada has used is super soul or the Paramatma. And he is the Upadrishta and Anumanta. Upadrishta means overseer and Anumanta means permitter. So Paramatma is there in everybody's heart, and he is the Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha. So Bharta means master and Bhokta means the supreme enjoyer. So he is the master. But we tend to ignore the master. Master is the one that gives instructions, right? If you have a master and a servitor, I don't want to call servant or slave. That gives a wrong connotation, but servitor. Servitor means who has voluntarily chosen to serve a superior person and calls him a master, more like a spiritual master and disciple. That way you can think of master and servitor or disciple. What is the job of disciple? To carry out the instructions of the master. But if the disciple ignores the master, then is he a good disciple? Will he make progress? Will he be successful? No. So by ignoring the master, the disciple cannot be successful. But that's what we are all doing. We don't even know we have a master. We have chosen, like it or not, we have a master, and that is Paramatma, and he is trying to guide us for our benefit. But we have been ignoring him. But he is the supreme enjoyer, Bhokta. He is the master, Bharta, and he is the Anumanta, and he is the overseer, Upadrishta. But he is so kind, we try to do all kind of nonsense. We are trying to give instructions to the master. The disciple telling the master, no, no, master, what you are saying, I don't want to do. I actually want to do this something else. Then the master is so kind, he says, okay, you do it. Because without the permission of master, nothing can happen. That is proven here, Anumanta. He is the Anumanta, he is the permitter. By design, we cannot do anything which we are not permitted to do by the master, by the Anumanta or by the Paramatma. That's why it is said, without the permission of God, even a blade of grass does not move. That is the meaning here. But he is so kind that he grants our wishes, and we feel we are the master. Because our real master is very kindly granting everything. We say that, no, spoiled children. When parent does everything that the child wants, whether it is good for the child or bad, and parent doesn't have any oversight, then the child becomes spoiled. But still, he cannot do anything without the parent, because in just a material sense, you need money. Who gives the money? The parent gives the money. Child says, I want to go smoke cigarette, I want to go drink, I want to go to the bar, I want to go to this. Parents don't either care, or they say, okay, go do whatever you want. The child becomes spoiled. But he still needs the parents' permission, and parent is the real oversight. But sometimes the child becomes the master, and then he lands into trouble. So that is the explanation here of Paramatma. And that person who is the Upadrishta, Anumanta, the overseer, permitter, Bhokta and Bharta, the master and the enjoyer, the real enjoyer. We are the disciple or the servitor, and he is the enjoyer. That person is the Maha Ishvara or Paramatma that is given in this verse. And he resides in the body, in our body. Okay, Dehe Asmin Purushah Parah. And he's Parah, he's transcendental. Don't think he's the Jiva, he's another one. He's the Para, Paramatma. Okay, so that is the understanding of this one. Now we come to very beautiful part 25, 26. So now we have covered all the 6 topics. Okay, so we covered all these 3. Again, I'm a person who believes in revision. Always revise, then it goes into your head. So once again, if you want, you can unmute and shout. Kshetram. What is kshetram? What is kshetram, or the field? Just 1 or 2 words. Anybody?
Body.
Body. Very good. Who is kshetragya?
Soul.
Self.
Soul.
Yeah.
Which soul?
Self.
Self. And there
Jiva.
are 2 types of kshetra. Kshetragya.
And Paramatma.
Jiva and super soul.
Jiva and
Very good.
Paramatma.
Jiva and Paramatma, or soul and super soul. Very good. Jnana. What is jnana? Come on, wake up.
What?
Someone else.
Paramatma.
No, jnana. Paramatma is geyam. We'll come to that. Jnana is? Remember?
Knowledge.
No, knowing the
Knowledge.
How to know. Yes, knowledge.
How to know.
How to know the knowledge. The path to knowledge. Yeah? Path to knowledge. All those things. Like, what were some of the things in path to knowledge? Come on. Come on. Wake up. I'm treating you all like small children.
Humility, simplicity.
Very nice. Humility, simplicity. 1 or 2 more.
Tolerance.
Tolerance. 1 more.
Prideless.
Huh?
Prideless.
Prideless. Very nice. Very nice. And then many things. Non-violence. And one important one you forgot, which is the most important path to knowledge.
Cleanliness.
Humility.
Okay.
Surrendering to bona fide authority.
Okay. That is second most important. Surrendering to
Humility.
Humility.
topmost path to
Bhakti.
knowledge. Come on.
Bhakti.
Yeah, love.
Bhakti, yes, yes,
Yeah,
bhakti. It is there in the 8 and 8 to 12. Bhakti is there.
Yes.
Ananya bhakti. It is mentioned there. Ananya bhakti and avyabhicharena, or satatam, always continuous,
King of law.
exclusive bhakti to Krishna. So that is the path to knowledge. What is the object of knowledge, or who is the object of knowledge?
Paramatma.
Paramatma.
Paramatma. Very good. Yes, great. Okay, Prakriti and nature. So what is Prakriti?
Material world.
Material world. Yes, but
Material world.
very, very true. And what does Prakriti do?
Stimulates
His
you.
job.
Gives the good and bad things.
Yes, gives the good and
Gives
bad
choices.
Choices.
choices. Yes,
Choices.
yes, exactly. So Prakriti is there for us to have a set of choices. It's like a buffet, or a, you go into a buffet restaurant. There are all the choices. But who is the chooser? So who is Purusham?
Jivatma. Jiva.
Jivatma. What is his job?
Is to choose one.
Chooses. Very nice. And then what happens to the Jivatma once he makes choices?
He
The good or bad.
He will turn into good or bad because of his
suffers.
choices.
he develops
Suffering.
consciousness once he develops.
If he makes the right choices.
Right choice.
If he makes the right.
Otherwise, he suffers.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And there is last thing, and there is another Purusham. Who is the other Purusham?
Paramatma.
Paramatma. He is the Param Purusham.
Super
Super soul. Very good. Very good. So we did a good revision of all the 6 points, and everything that you said is covered till verse number 23. So 13.1 to 23 has been clearly revised at this point by all of us. Very good. Okay. Now, one who understands this, now this is talking about all of you. Now, again, I'm joking, but if one really understands this, not to this just level of, kind of, oh, not open book test, not by just looking, by really realizing, by living our lives in that way. And in that, verses number 8 to 12 is very important, because that is showing the path, the direction. Okay. So if you are really living your life according to 8 to 12, and let alone 8 to 12, among them only one is required, bhakti. And others will automatically develop. If you become a good bhakta, automatically cleanliness, simplicity, they will come. Of course, you should try as well. Both need to be there. So like this, we have said, no, you do bhakti, you put your effort, Krishna will interfere. He will make good qualities come in your heart. And like that, you will keep making upward progress. But the most fundamental requirement is your bhakti. And then Krishna will pull you up by making you a good person, in addition to accelerating your bhakti by reciprocating with you. So those who understand this really nicely, what happens to them? So one who understands, number 24, one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So that is the result, okay, of this knowing the answer and following the path to these 6 points. If you do that, liberation, Krishna is saying, liberation is guaranteed. But acharyas and all have said only bhakti is enough. You don't need to do all those things. That's the process for the jnanis. And that's why jnana is so hard. By doing all those things, you will see it is really hard to do all those things. Therefore, in Kali Yuga especially, bhakti is the only requirement. Just follow bhakti and you will be completely successful. So that is the topic coming up in next 2 verses. What are the various processes? 25 and 26. The various processes. So Lord Krishna will first describe all the other processes other than bhakti in the 25th verse. Then he will say, by the way, there is bhakti also. So some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, which is dhyana, and that is there in the verse itself, dhyanena atmani. So through meditation, others follow through the cultivation of knowledge, which is jnana yoga. In the Sanskrit, it is written as Sankhya yoga. Sankhya and jnana, same thing. They are just synonyms, same thing, jnana yoga. So others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still other through working without fruitive desires. This is nishkama karma yoga. Lord Krishna has said karma yogena. So it is referring to nishkama karma yoga, working without fruitive desires. So we have read all these 3 processes in so many chapters before, but bhakti is not mentioned here. What is mentioned? Nishkama karma yoga, jnana yoga or sankhya yoga, and dhyana yoga. Now comes bhakti. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, each and every word is important. You don't need jnana. Those who are not conversant in spiritual knowledge, ajnanatah. You can be ajnani. No need for jnana. Okay, so jnana is not a requirement for bhakti. Begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing from him, about him from others. Who is those others? Our acharyas and the devotees of the Lord. All you need to do is hear from them and trust them and follow their advice. That's all that you need to do. So this is Lord Krishna is saying, no need to become a jnani. All this knowledge that we have read so far is not required. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So you can see here, this is the language of the Vedas or the Vedanta. This is how bhakti is mentioned in the Vedanta. Yes, it also works. But in Bhagavad Gita, it is completely emphasized. But you will see that the difference is that in 25 and 26, those three processes, jnana, dhyana, and nishkama karma yoga, have all been put into one verse. Whereas the process of hearing from authority and simply following them without any understanding of jnana is given in one full verse. And this verse means to follow the pure devotees of the Lord without any prior knowledge, simply by faith. Put your faith in them and follow them. This is the process of bhakti. Okay. And this aspect which is mentioned here, I just want to re-emphasize ajnana. Jnana is not a requirement, and Lord Krishna says in the verse number 10.10 that dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite, that I give them the gift of knowledge, or I give them the knowledge, the intelligence by which they can come to me. All they need to do is satatam kirtayanto mam, or nityam kathayantascha mam nityam. Just do bhakti yoga, katha of kirtan of Krishna, nothing else, and he will give the intelligence. And then he sends someone from others, shrutva anyebhyah upasate. So by hearing and by upasate, by surrendering to someone else, that someone else is Guru. So by hearing from Guru, they begin to worship me. They surrender to me. And that is what we had discussed. Someone need to mute. So that is what we had discussed in one of the very important verses of, which is a part of our key verses, I think. Let me see here. The Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paye Bhakti Lata Bija. This verse is very, very important. It is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Wait, I think it is there in our key verses. Is it there? Yes, right here. 19.151 to 182. This section, and I have given a class on this section at some time. I don't know if I uploaded to YouTube or not, but I can do it again at some time. But this is saying that one receives the gift of Krishna from the Guru. Guru Krishna Prasade Paye. So one receives the prasad of Krishna, of bhakti, of Krishna bhakti from Guru through Krishna. It is coming from Krishna, but to us it is coming from Guru. So Guru Krishna Prasade Paye. And what is the prasad? Krishna Bhakti, Bhakti Lata Bija. A small seed, bija of bhakti, is what one gets from Guru. And then if you properly sow the seed, properly follow the instructions, then that seed will become a lata. Lata means a creeper, a big creeper. Very nicely it will bloom. So we should hear from spiritual master, from Guru, and we should follow their instructions. That's all we need to do. Our bhakti will blossom. That is the essence. Okay. So that is the essence of this verse number 26. Okay. Chapter 13. Okay. Right here. So that is the 25 and 26. Now we will come to last section, 27 to 35. We will do this a little more quickly. So 27th verse is that everything. So now Lord Krishna is basically concluding, and this section is basically saying that one who knows this whole knowledge is the true Jnani. A true Jnani is one who knows this entire knowledge which has been covered so far. Okay. But the very important verse within that is the one that says that if you want to know all this knowledge, the best process is to become my bhakta. That is 13.19. It's a very, very important verse because it says, by becoming my bhakta, you can get all this knowledge easily. But anyway, whether you get it the easy way or hard way, if you get this knowledge, then what happens? Then you are the true Jnani. That is what is being said in these 4 or 5 verses from 27 to 31, which is 5 verses. So I will read these. Okay, why don't you take 2 minutes and read these 5 verses, 27 to 31. You can, the title is Vision of the Self-Realized. That is the title. With that understanding, read these verses. 2 minutes. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay. So there's not much to explain here, but what is written here is that one who knows this approaches the transcendental destination. Tato yati yati param gatim. 29th verse says that he approaches the transcendental destination, and that transcendental destination through the process of knowledge is not uh, um, the same as that of bhakti that is given in verse 31. Brahma sampadyate tada. So he attains the Brahman conception. That's what it means. So when you follow the process of jnana, you attain the Brahman realization. So that is the that section. And then the last section, 32 to 35, is that ultimately the soul is the non-doer. We think we are the doer, but we are the non-doer. So why don't you take another 1 minute and read 32, 33, 34, 35, these last 4 verses, and we will summarize. Okay, 20 more seconds or 30 more seconds. Okay. So what these last 4 verses are saying, that the soul is not the doer. The only thing that the soul, quote unquote, does, and does is a kind of a poor choice of words, is chooses. The soul only makes choices. It only desires, I want to do this, I want to do that. The subtle body, which is the ahankar, the mind and the intelligence, facilitate or enable the making of all the plans of how to fulfill the soul's desire. And then the body executes it based on the directions of the mind and the intelligence. So the doer is not the soul is not the doer. The soul only desires, and the soul is pure. The soul is absolutely pure, but it gets conditioned. Its eternal nature is pure, but due to the constant or long period of covering by the subtle body and the material and the gross body, basically the material body, it becomes conditioned. And due to its conditioning, it's if you it keeps being then it the only choices that it is allowed to see are the bad ones, because the mind always shows the bad choices. These are the only choices. You're walking down the street, there is a temple also, but you see a bar, you see this, you see that, you say, temple. Then you ask somebody, did you see there was a temple on the road? No, I didn't even notice. I only saw a bar, I only saw a drug shop, I only saw this, I only saw that, I saw all those kind of things. I didn't even. So the senses and the body don't even offer those choices to the soul, and then the soul has to choose between whatever the set of choices that it is given, and it gets more and more and more conditioned. So the soul is the non-doer. And the other important point here that is shown here is in the 34th verse, that the soul is the one that illuminates the entire body by the consciousness. So the source of consciousness is the soul. When the soul is absent, consciousness also goes away. So that is the end of the 13th chapter, and we will end here, and we are close to 6 o'clock. So let's see, there were 2 questions on the form. So by the way, any questions on today's discussion? On today's topic, does anybody have any questions? Because the other questions that are there that I'm going to show are not related to today's topic. Okay, I'm assuming no questions then.
Somebody asked me here privately, which verse number mentions about celebrating the inconceivability?
About the in agyanam, I will tell you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, if I may interrupt, I have a question.
Yes, just a second. Let me answer that other question as to which verse is talking about the inconceivability. And that one is 16th verse, where it says avigyayam, that the Paramatma is unknowable or inconceivable. 16th verse. Yes, Anita Mataji, please.
Yes, Mata. Yes, Prabhu. So, I think in the 3rd chapter or somewhere we came across a verse which said, "We are not the only doers. There are also other factors contributing." And now, when you say our soul is not the doer, so who are the actual doers?
Yeah, so the soul is the chooser. It's not the doer. Okay, our modes are the doers. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. So what it means is that the prakriti and the material body, if you see, so who is the doer? I'm not sharing, but you remember that whole slide that we had on the field?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Let me show it again. Yeah. So the field, you can say the field and the Prakriti are the doer. So the Prakriti is offering all the choices. And through our conditioning, which is in the mind, intelligence, and false ego, we are making those choices. And that is how we are enjoying or suffering.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, I think that explains it. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
So it is through the interaction between Prakriti, and the field is part of the Prakriti, material nature.
And field does not include the soul. So
And
yes.
field does not include the soul. Absolutely.
Yes, Prabhu.
The
Thank you,
mind,
sir.
intelligence, and false ego have captured the soul. The soul is supposed to be free and making free choices. Okay.
Yes.
But after the conditioning, the mind, intelligence, and false ego have captivated the soul. They have made the soul has no choices. So in the prison, you don't have any choice. You cannot say, give me palak paneer and all that. They will only give you whatever they want. You don't have choice. So the soul is in the captivation of the contaminated or conditioned mind, intelligence, false ego. What choices it will make? Doesn't even have enough choices to make. Like I was saying, the mind, even though you have choices, you're going down the street, you have good choices, your conditioning doesn't even show you those choices. Somebody asks you, did you see there was a temple? Oh, really? There was a temple? I didn't even see it. That's our mind is trying to block off those kind of choices because we are conditioned to make certain type of choices.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you so much.
Any other question from today's class? Okay, if not, then I had two questions, due to shortage of time, we will discuss one of them, and then the other one, this one, Saguna and Nirguna in Vedanta. And by the way,
You're not sharing.
I'm not sharing. Okay, sorry. This question, like I said, so this question is asked, what is the difference between Saguna, Nirguna, and is this the same as the Vedanta understanding of Saguna, Nirguna? I want to give a proper answer. But one thing I want to say, I don't see anything in this question which had to be anonymous. So I want to know who asked the question. Is that person here? Or if you don't feel comfortable to tell everybody that you asked it, please send this question again, but with your name and email. Only for confidential or very private questions, we request that it be anonymous. So I got this anonymous question, and I would like to, request that you don't keep such things anonymous, at least from me. And I actually had a counter question to this person, and I cannot ask the counter question because I don't even know who asked this question. So I will, anyway, if you would contact me and tell me, and I can ask you my counter question to get clarification, that will be better. Otherwise, I will answer this question next time because it will take some long few minutes, at least 10 minutes to answer this. And we have to do our japa also right now. This is another question that was asked by one person, and that person kindly shared their name, so we know who it is. And we know that this person joined late into our class sessions, so it is understandable. And see, these are the kind of things I can draw some information from the knowing who asked the question. So the question is, we become happy when things go in our way, and sad if things go the other way. How to control our emotions, stay the same under both scenarios. So we have answered this question many times in previous classes. This person joined late, so I request them to review previous classes. But I'll give a short answer. The short answer is that, yes, it is very hard, first of all, to stay calm or to stay the same in situations of suffering or enjoyment. When things go our way, we become very happy. We should not become overly happy. We should try and stay calm. Or we should not also feel very sad when things don't go our way. Now, it is very hard to do it. It's easier said than done. But the way to get there is the main thing we have been saying over and over again, is by practice. By practice, take small things in your life and try to practice being equal. If somebody says something bad to you, let's say in your family, your child says something bad to you, or your father says something bad to you, or your husband or wife or brother or sister, you know that they are good people, they like you, so it's a very safe environment, you know that they have good for you in the heart. But in that moment we get agitated. Try to ignore it, try to let it go, see the good in the other person. Oh, this person actually loves me, maybe right now he's agitated or something. Try with small things in safe environment. That is point number 1. And that way you'll build the muscle. You cannot lift, I always say, 300 pounds on day 1. You start by lifting 10 pounds, 20 pounds. So try these things in safe, smaller environments, situations. Most important second point is develop bhakti, because then you are inviting Krishna to help you. Otherwise, the previous point I said you have to do on your own. And you can go to the bookstore and there are so many self-help books. How to control the mind, how to be peaceful. Go on amazon.com and Google how to be peaceful. You will get so many books. Read any of those books, they will give you good advice how to be peaceful. None of them will talk about bhakti, because and the beauty of bhakti is that when you invite bhakti in your life, Krishna will interfere. So with bhakti, not only you are getting the knowledge of bhakti, how to do bhakti, you are getting the help of the supreme person, of your best friend. And he will help you like magic. He will help you to stay equal, to remove the feelings of extra suffering and extra enjoyment and stay calm. So please follow the process of bhakti. So that is the answer to the question. And for more detailed answer, please review the previous classes. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, my sons are doing a lot of mathematics. They are very deep into math. I have seen they have invested 10-15 years, just even at a young age. Even become good at math, you have to put 10-15 years of practice just to become really good, like at the top level, good, that level. Even at a very basic level, if you have to become really good, you have to put in so much work for material things. For such a spiritual thing, how can you imagine that without putting in any effort from your side, it will magically happen? So little bit, but Krishna has made it very easy. But little bit effort you have to put to develop bhakti, to develop the practice of bhakti, which is known as sadhana bhakti. So please put in some effort for sadhana bhakti continuously, consistently in your life, and I can guarantee you that you will see a very you all these kind of questions will get answered. All these kind of questions, your life will actually begin to become very calm, very peaceful, free of suffering. So please try out the process of bhakti. That is my humble request. And the best way to try out the process of bhakti is by taking the name of the Lord, which is what we are going to do today. So also we are, having these classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. We started this series, and we also do this program on Friday, and where you can come, and we are going to, we have done one day, we did 8 rounds of japa chanting, kirtan, those things which are basically the practical ways of doing bhakti in your life. So like this, please introduce the process of bhakti in your life. All these kind of questions will definitely be answered. Okay. So we'll stop here. We'll do our japa. I know it is 6:10. We are beyond our time. So if you want to leave, you can leave and do your japa at some other time during the day today. If it is getting late for you, if possible to stay, please stay and finish one round of japa along with us. That is my request. Okay. So, and we have japa beads. We have all the equipment. If you want to come to our house, if you are living in Portland, you can come and pick it up. And we don't make any profit out of any of this thing. but it's all just available to you at cost price. What we get from temple is closed these days, so we cannot visit the temple, but we got all the or most of the lot of beads and bead bags and all these things. You can come and avail of that from our place. This kit is just $18.
I have a question before you do the japa.
Okay, did you have a question? Anybody said?
It was me, Swanik.
What is the question?
So how many beads are on the japa? For the japa.
108.
Okay.
Okay, so we will start our japa now. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Few more seconds, my wife is almost done here. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita. Please wait. So how many of you are starting to do japa regularly? At least let's say 2 rounds per day. If you want to raise your hand, or at least 2 rounds per day. Very nice to see some of you raising your hands.
I do once. I do one round.
I should have started with 1. Okay. Very nice. 1. Okay. How many of you are doing 1 round per day? Takes 7 minutes.
I am doing, my mom is doing 2 rounds.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Anybody doing 4 rounds per day? Okay. Some of you are saying yes. Very nice. Anybody doing 8 rounds?
Once I did 9 rounds.
Okay. Very nice. Very good.
Who said that?
Some of them are also saying, so that's very wonderful. I want to ask 16.
No, serious. I
But
actually
if you're doing 16 rounds every day, that is very, very good. But again, the idea is to not categorize people. Okay, you are doing 2, so you are like, good, better, best. Not like that. But again, the idea is to please to inspire and to request everybody, please take up this japa. This is the best way of practically doing bhakti yoga. And at other times, listen to kirtan, hearing, or listen to Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. There are very wonderful, with the technology and all, there are so many options to listen to Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita online, etc. So please utilize your time in these things. Don't waste your time in all nonsense talks what what's in the latest fashion, what is the latest sari you bought, what is the latest movie, or what is the whatever
Gadget.
gadget, and all those things. Yes, you can have a gadget, buy whatever gadget, use it, and use it for your making your life happy and Krishna conscious. But don't dwell your mind on it, don't salivate on it, don't make that the primary center thing of your life. Keep the primary central thing as Krishna, and other things can support it, like your job, your other things, your gadgets, your whatever, your life. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to hang around here. If you have any questions or comments or any discussion you want to have, you can do. I'm stopping the recording. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Next week we will cover chapter 14.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Right, Prabhu, you are